What is a political strategy? It's something every candidate needs. It's what you decide to talk about in a political campaign. It's what you tell voters about yourself. It's the stuff, the policy stuff that you wear on your sleeve in every stump speech. What I'm going to do is take a very, very complicated subject and explain it in a way that a German shepherd could understand. So stick with me. We're going to start with very simple basics here. What are you going to say? Who are you going to say it to? How are you going to say it? Everything that I tell you in this video is related to those three things. Stick with me here. What is your campaign message? It's information that voters need to have about you in order for them to make an informed decision. What interests them most is what you're going to do for them, your community, your state, your country, how you are going to improve their quality of life, the problems that you are going to fix and how you're going to fix them, the wrongs that you want to right, the injustice that you want to correct. It is the reason they should vote for you instead of someone else. These are 5 questions every voter expects you to answer in a political campaign. What are you going to do for me? What makes you qualify? What can you tell me about your moral code so that I know that my values are in sync with yours? What can you tell me that lets me know I can trust you to do the right thing when I'm not looking? And the 5th one, what makes you better than the people running against you? In other words, why you, not one of them? Those are the basics of a campaign message. If you do not have a good campaign message, you do not have, and you will never have, a political strategy. So that is the first rock that you have to uncover at the beginning of a campaign and figure it out, because without a good one, you're not going to go anywhere. There is no strategy to execute. I said, what are you going to say? And then I say, who do you say it to? The biggest mistakes that some candidates make is they try to advertise to everybody and they try to be all things to all people, which in this age of a polarized electorate is a colossal waste of money and a ticket to failure when you're prosecuting a political campaign. You want to concentrate on what we call your low-hanging fruit. The fruit that you can pick in an orchard without getting on a stepladder. That would be voters that you know will vote for you if you get them to the polls. Voters that can be persuaded to vote for you if you give them a good reason to do so. And then there's that 3rd category of the electorate. These are people who are never going to vote for you because their arm would fall off if they did. So why target them with anything? The answer is you shouldn't. Ignore them. There is nothing you can say to that piece of the electorate that's going to hate you, that's ever going to convince them to vote for you. So don't spend any money trying to reach them. It is a waste. So those are the basics of targeting, and that's what you look for at the initial phase of a political campaign. Who can I persuade? Who's going to vote for me if we get them to the polls? There are lots of ways to dissect a jurisdiction. You want to look at where people live. Are they in a rural area, a suburban area, or an urban area? Because culturally, that makes a big difference, and all 3 of those perform differently in elections. You want to look at the demographics of the jurisdiction that you are trying to appeal to. You want to know their age. You want to know their ethnicity, their race, whether they rent or own the place where they live. You want to look at their income level. You want to look at their net worth. If you can get the information, you want to know what their credit scores are. All of this mishmash of data makes sense when you begin comparing one area to another area, because this is what you'll find, that those with a college degree behave differently than those who don't have one. Those who are older sometimes don't behave the same way that younger voters do. African Americans, Hispanic people don't always vote the way Caucasians do in a political contest. You have to do a deep dive into the data to figure out how you are going to niche market to your electorate, what you are going to tell them that makes them more likely to vote for you and less likely to vote for your opponent. If you do not know where to get this data, leave a comment in the comment section and I will tell you exactly where to find it. So we've now talked about your message, and we have now talked about how you target. Now we're going to talk about how you disseminate it. Things in politics cost a lot of money, and there are things that don't cost a lot of money. And I'm going to start with the inexpensive and stuff that can be purchased without breaking your bank. You can talk to people on emails. You can send text messages to people. You can print little flyers that you hand out when you are going door to door. You can talk to the people that you meet going door to door and ask their permission to put a yard sign in their yard starting a month before people start to vote. None of those are expensive. It is not expensive to seek out reporters that work for newspapers or TV outlets or radio stations and ask them for time to come do an interview with you or to go on the air and do a live interview with voters. That doesn't cost a lot of money, and some mainstream media is a good way to disseminate a message in a political campaign. And we'll talk about the hot topic. It's called social media. There are social media platforms that have become ubiquitous in their use in the political marketplace. Now, just rattle them off. You know what I'm talking about. There's YouTube, there is TikTok, there's Facebook, there is Instagram, there is X, Twitter, the thing that Elon Musk owns. Even LinkedIn has gotten into the political act with some of the discourse on LinkedIn. All are legitimate ways to reach voters, but all have very different demographics. Now, here's the point. When constructing a political strategy, you got to meet voters where they are. You got to get to them through the things that they rely on for their political news, which means they're not going to change watching TikTok if that's where they get their information because you don't want to use TikTok. You got to use TikTok if you want to talk to them and reach them. And the same is true with all of these. Now, they all, like I say, have different demographics, but TikTok is for young people. If you need to reach young people, you got to be on TikTok. Middle-aged people kind of congregate around YouTube. This is where they go to learn things and watch the evening news at the end of the day. You got to be there if you want to reach them. If you're really after seniors, you got to see them on Facebook. Instagram appeals to people of all ages. People are on Twitter is a unique audience because it's populated not only by haters, but by opinion leaders who go there to keep up with news. Do not ignore any one of these if you have a diverse electorate. It is a cheap an easy way to reach people, to communicate, to secure volunteers, and even a great way to raise donations for your campaign. We should also mention here the expensive, the things that cost real money. And they're confined to kind of three things. Television. If you live in a large urban area and you live in a certain demographic where there are millions of people in your jurisdiction that are watching television, commercial television is a great way to captivate and reach people 30 seconds at a time with commercial television. Hit a button in Chicago, air your ad, and 2 million people are likely to see it in the evening. If you are running in a suburban area, you might want to resort to cable television. You might want to consider what we call CTV, that is connected TV, that is for people who subscribe to a cable network. There is what we call OTT, which is people who do not have a cable subscription but get their information through an internet connection. There are lots of ways to advertise on television, all three of these. You probably will need a vendor to help you place time on those things and to do it efficiently. In many communities, there are still dominant radio stations that people tune into for their news and information. It's a good place to buy radio spots if you're running in a jurisdiction that has a dominant radio station. And then there are the universal things that candidates in rural, in suburban, and even urban areas do now, and that is called persuasion mail. It is something that you can design and print and send all at once, and within 2 or 3 days after it's dropped to the post office, everybody on your mail list has received that piece of mail from you. Now, there are a whole host of things in putting together a mail piece that people actually want to read, and I know a lot of candidates waste money with the mail they send because it looks like trash, but those are the things that cost money. The more money you have in a political campaign, the better off you are, because money allows you to amplify your voice and get your message to the people who need to hear it and see it. These are the basics of a political strategy. Now, let's turn to the fine-tuning. Once you've decided what it is that you're going to say and who you are going to target, and you have a reasonable plan put together to decide how you're going to disseminate that information, now it's time to turn to what happens when your opponents also start doing their campaigns. When voters get into the voting booth, they're going to see names on a ballot, maybe a party affiliation next to it, but they're not going to see much more than a name and a party affiliation. And you're going to have competitors in an election who are also doing what we just told you how to do, disseminating their political strategy. They're going to say things that you did not anticipate. They may have a better blueprint, or they may have a piece of the electorate that performs better than some of yours. So once you have your strategy constructed, you have to fine-tune it. So the first thing you do in fine-tuning your strategy is compare yourself to all of the other candidates running for that office, all of your competitors. Compare your biography to their biography. Compare your notions of right and wrong to their notions of right and wrong, what we call your moral code. Compare your issue positions to theirs and see where you may have different ideas on problems that you're going to solve or how you would do them compared to the way they intend to solve these problems. Now that you have all of this on paper and you've lined them up, now you can begin to put the final touches on your own campaign strategy. And you do that by answering these questions and writing down the answers on a sheet of paper. Why should voters vote for you and not them? What makes you special and more special than any of the other candidates running? What about your biography makes you unique, that makes you different than the other candidates running? All of this is a way to put together what we call your unique selling proposition. That determines the issues that you kind of wear on your sleeve in a campaign. It determines the way you introduce yourself to the electorate. It determines the content of your social media. It determines the way you respond to what other candidates say during the course of the campaign. I know I said this is complicated, and this is why it gets a little complicated toward the end. You can probably figure out a message. You can probably figure out what your target audience is. You can probably figure out cheap ways and expensive ways to disseminate it. But when you get down to comparing yourself to other people and the fact that other people are going to be advertising in the campaign, this is where you might want to get some help or some input. I'm going to say this. Each week I set aside a little time to talk to candidates who are running for office. If you are trying to put together a winning strategy for a political campaign, I invite you to be in touch with me. Tell me a little bit about yourself. It's in the link below this video. I will then be in touch with you to schedule a call.